What's up, guys? This is TheKephas. What's up, everybody? Today we are going to relive one of my favorite moments in Classic WoW, and that is playing a Classic Hunter and taming our first pet. We are just under one level away from being able to unlock pets, and I'm really excited. But I thought this would be a fun idea, kind of reliving some of my favorite memories and moments that I get to experience all over again in Classic WoW. And I'd say that the most prominent one for me personally, the one that always stands out, is just the Classic Hunter in general and its design, and learning to tame your pet and everything that kind of goes into that. So I thought it'd be fun to relive it. We're going to spend a little bit of time leveling up before we get the pet, and just kind of experiencing that, and then we will get to unlock our pet. So that's what we're going to do, and I thought it'd be fun, talk about and share my thoughts on that, and maybe have a discussion, that all that good stuff. And of course, there might be times like I might do more episodes like this, and my goal is not to sort of dunk or talk bad about retail WoW, but I'm sure there will be times where we will be comparing. I am so sorry I did not see that person there. We will be comparing the two games, and I will prefer one over the other. And in the case of the Hunter class, I personally have to say that I prefer the classic iteration of the Hunter by quite a lot. Did that get taken? Okay, it did. And that is because of how much is involved with the class. One of the big things that has changed in WoW over the years is how classes are designed and the philosophy that sort of goes into their design. These days, classes are a lot more streamlined. They're a lot more focused on their combat rotations, what they can provide to the actual moment-to-moment battle, kind of system. And so a lot of classes sort of revolve around this concept of building and spending some sort of resource or some variation of that, maybe some dots, or what have you. But for the most part, classes kind of, it's more action-based, I suppose, more, abilities to use during combat. Whereas in Classic WoW, or this iteration that we're playing here, obviously, is the Wrath Classic iteration. So there's some changes for, compared to the actual, original game. But still, like, even during this time, classes had a lot more flavor. There was a lot more involved in playing your class outside of the damage dealing aspect of it. So for paladins, for example, you had auras, you had buffs, you had seals, and all that stuff, which you could coordinate with other paladins if you're in a group, and make sure everybody had all of your buffs. Or if you're playing by yourself, you'd pick the one that best suited you in the current situation, stuff like that. So you had all of that. Of course, in Classic, totems were a lot more prominent, and for shamans, stuff like that. And then you have your Hunter, and I think that the Hunter embodies and is the best showcase for how much things have changed, because in my opinion, my favorite class design in all of World of Warcraft, perhaps all of MMOs in general, is the Classic Hunter. And that is because of everything that goes into playing one outside, not even just in combat, but outside of combat as well. So you're seeing it here. So if you don't play Classic, you play retail, that as a hunter, you start with a pet. That pet follows you around. You send it out to fight. It's sort of a unique thing, even in retail, because there's only like one other class that has a pet. Well, I guess Death Knights, Undead Death Knights have their ghouls, but for the most part, there aren't a lot of pets, in the game. And certainly what makes the hunter's pet stand out is you actually have to tame one. I mean, you can go out into the world and pretty much anything that's a beast, you can tame it. And one thing that's nice about retail WoW is there's a large selection of pets, and some pretty cool looking updated ones. You got frogs, you've got hellboars, bees, all kinds of cool stuff that they've added in. But for the most part, those pets don't really, there's not anything involved in them. You can sort of, you can heal them if they're hurt, or if they're dying. You can revive them if they do die. Yeah, but other than that, they just kind of follow you around and attack what you attack, and there really isn't much to them. But in Classic, it's much, much different. And so we're not really there yet in terms of having a pet, but once we get one, we will have to focus on keeping it happy. And the way that we do that is by feeding it. And so each pet is, belongs to a different family. There are bears, boars, cats, wolves, all kinds of different pets, and they all have their own food groups, so they only eat certain types of food, and then there are some that eat everything, like boars. Bears eat like meat. I think cats mostly eat meat as well, and there are different ones. And so they all have their own type of food they eat. They all have their own special, unique traits. And then, of course, in the Wrath version, every pet has its own talent tree based on 3 main archetypes. You have your tenacity, ferocity, and cunning, which is sort of divided by, like, tenacity, I believe, is tank, ferocity is DPS, cunning is sort of like PvP DPS kind of thing. So, you've got that as well. And so right there alone, you've already got a lot more involved. Basically, in retail, your pet is sort of like a drone that follows you around. You can kind of pick its archetype. There are no talent trees involved or any uniqueness at all aside from its look. And so then in Classic, you have a lot more variety and a lot more involved with just your pet alone. Sort of, you have to feed it to keep it happy. You have to make sure that it stays alive. If it dies, it's going to be much more unhappy with you much quicker. So if it's been happy all this time and then suddenly it's not happy, it's because you let it die, so you have to try to prevent it from dying and stuff like that. So, of course, if it does die, then you can still make it happy again, and then over time its bond with you grows and it stays happy longer. There's all that stuff. It levels up on its own, so when it levels up, it has its own skill system, in terms of just unlocking new talents and its own talent tree. So you're building your own pet. It has its own uniqueness. There's all of that to it. And then you look at the hunter themselves. Hunters have to maintain their own health. So, of course, in Classic WoW, you will have to get your health back up by using bandages or food. You have to drink for mana. Of course, in Wrath, you get an aspect of the Viper, which is really fun. You can kind of switch back and forth between your aspect of the Viper and your aspect of the Hawk to deal damage and then to kind of go through a regeneration phase, which I actually think is a really fun sort of mechanic as you're leveling up, especially. And then, of course, you have to keep food for yourself. You have to keep food for your pet, bandages if you want those, sort of as a way to heal, between pulls. And then, of course, if you're playing a hunter, you use a ranged weapon, and so you have to make sure that you have ammo for your ranged weapon, which means that you're going to need, if you're using a bow, you're going to need arrows. If you're using a gun, you're going to need bullets. So that's something else that you have to manage, and that is all of those things for the most part. I mean, obviously you still have health. You don't have mana in retail, but you do have health. But pretty much all that stuff is non-existent in the retail version of the game. And so you're going to have people that are going to like the fact that all that's gone and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And you can just kind of play your hunter and just go out there and do your rotation and, it's all good. But in Classic, you have all that stuff to manage. And some people, like myself, prefer actually having all of that stuff to manage, because for me, the idea that I have about it is that it sort of adds more to the game and how I interact with it and how I interact with the world. Because, for example, playing a hunter, having ammunition, right? So as a hunter, I can benefit a lot from playing as a profession, having an engineer. So my hunter is a miner engineer. I can mine ore. I can use that ore to make bullets, and then I can use those bullets in my gun. And so that makes my profession even more meaningful. It's not just like hey, I'm doing it for this item and I'm doing it to make money this way or whatever. It has a lot more meaning to it. Same with first aid, and this is true of all classes, especially like hunters, warriors, classes that can't have any self-healing, rogues. First aid is very useful. And then, of course, cooking is particularly useful for hunters because, again, you have food that you can make all kinds of food for yourself, for your pet, that kind of stuff. So cooking is also very useful. So you have all these extra things with professions that, while they're still in the game in retail, they mean a lot more in Classic in terms of, what value they add to your character in that moment and as you level up. So, it's something that you actually can consider. I mean, you don't have to be an engineer to play a hunter by any means. I mean, you could be using bows, and engineers don't make arrows, so that doesn't really help you at all. But if you're using guns or whatever, it's just something that you can consider, and you can use that as an advantage. You can actually also make guns as an engineer, which I just did. So I have the first gun that an engineer can make. So so there's just so much to it that I really truly appreciate, and it's one of those things where when I look at like the changes, because like I'm playing in Wrath now, right? So Wrath is kind of when the era of the dominant hunter started to fade, at least the classic variation of it, because like in the day, Beastmasters were strong, right? And so in Wrath, Beastmasters aren't quite as strong. Other variations of the hunter, the marksman and the survival hunter, sort of start to shine more in Wrath, and which is fine. I mean, that's cool. Survival is pretty fun in Wrath, I think. But what's more notable is the other sort of I guess streamlined aspects of the hunter. This is sort of when the hunter started to become more streamlined. So, for example, in Burning Crusade and in Vanilla, your ammo will only stack to 200, right? So, in Wrath, it stacks to 1,000, which means that you don't need as much inventory space to carry more ammo, so it saves you on a lot of inventory space. Now, I actually don't mind this because there's a lot of other things that you need to have in your bag, but I do appreciate that sort of that inventory aspect to inventory management that comes with playing a hunter, because you have to have food, you have to have water, you have to have your ammo, and so all of those things takes up inventory space, and that is a significant part of, like, to me, that adds gameplay. It's like playing Minecraft. You have to manage your inventory in Minecraft. You'll go out on your adventure, you'll gather up a bunch of resources, your inventory becomes full, you have to come back home and unload your inventory. And WoW, it's kind of the opposite, where you'll have a full inventory and then you need to go sort of refill it when you're out of ammo. You need to go either make more or buy more. You need to go get some food, different things like that. So it's sort of like a reverse Minecraft kind of thing going on there, which I think is kind of cool. I think it's like it's one of those things where, again, like in retail, you don't have to worry about any of those things. You don't have to buy spells. You don't have to do any of that. Everything, you can just kind of keep going on your adventure. And that's all fine and good. I'm not here to say one is better. I'm just saying that I prefer this variation. So, the hunter in general in Classic is just something that I really, truly do appreciate. And like I said, even though in Wrath it's starting to become streamlined, there are some things about, like a little bit of streamlining was fine. Having, a little bit more inventory, having bigger stacks of, bullets. But what I think happened is that as WoW grew and the game became more end game focused, with, getting you to the end, to the latest expansion, people are focused more on doing dungeons and raids, and so it's sort of hard to kind of expect people to want to keep up with like mana, pets, and feeding pets, and all of those things. And so what happens is people are like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go do my raid. And so if that's your focus, then you're going to think, well, we probably should streamline this stuff out and phase this kind of out of the game. And so that's one of those examples where the game has changed. The game has become more end game focused. So like when I'm leveling a hunter in retail, to me, it's really not that fun. Like hunters are really powerful levelers. I mean, you can shoot from any range, and enemies up close to you, you can still shoot. You can shoot while running. They're a range class that is very mobile and very powerful, whereas in Classic, I kind of have to be a little bit more stationary. Once the enemy starts to get close to me, I will not be able to shoot anymore, and so if I'm really trying hard, I would probably try to kite a little bit, do that kind of stuff. If I want to keep shooting longer, I probably would speed up the process, but I'm lazy, so what do you do? So like here, I'm actually having to use a melee weapon. So, hunters in Classic have melee to worry about. So you can see there's a lot of different aspects to the hunter that's outside of combat that is just so involved, and so that's one of the things that I like about it. And I think that when we talk about Classic and retail, And we talk about how, we can kind of understand, that people have different things that they value from these games, right? That's sort of the thing. And I think that, like, one of the things that annoys me about the WoW community, if I can say, is how divided everybody is. You know what I mean? Like, people are, like, so certain that their version of the game is better, and it's like, well, no, it all kind of comes down to what you prefer. For people that prefer to just do end game, they may not value the sort of world interaction, outside of combat, type aspects of the game. And so the less of that there is, and the less of that there is for them to mess with, then the more they're going to enjoy the game, because they're just going to go straight to doing what they enjoy. WoW sort of becomes like a matchmaking game. It's like playing Overwatch. I log in, I go to my dungeon, I do my thing in 20 minutes and I'm done, or whatever. Or I log in for 2 hours in raid and I'm done. It's kind of, that's a certain mentality that some people have. Now, I don't agree with that mentality, see? And that's the thing, though. And this is where you kind of get on the other side, where people will kind of give Classic a hard time or kind of dump on Classic. That version is so inferior to the modern game because of how streamlined the modern game is. I can't imagine how anybody would prefer the older game. That sort of like, I guess, mentality that people have. But it's like, yeah, but in my mind, I don't care about raiding all the time. I just want to play an adventure game. It's like, in my mind, I'm paying $15 a month to play this game, right? I don't want to spend that money and just log in for 2 hours 2 nights a week and play the game for 4 hours and that's it. That's not how my mind works. If I'm going to do that, then I'm not going to pay $15 a month to do that. Now, that's me. That's just how my mind works. So when I play a game like World of Warcraft, I'm playing a game that I want to and just get immersed in and then explore that world and sort of really get into and sink my teeth into and have tons of things to do throughout the world and have a lot of involvement in that world. And so when I'm playing a hunter in Classic, I'm getting that connection. I'm feeling immersed because I have to, I have to go to town. I have to talk to the ammo vendor. I have to talk to other vendors. I have to go cook some food, go gather some meat and keep up with my food. Or if I want to make my own bullets, then I have to go gather the ore and do that. And that's all busy work. And so some people might see that as like a waste of time or whatever, or an inconvenience, but I see it as a means to immerse me in that world. You know what I mean? And so that becomes part of the experience for me. It's like playing Red Dead Redemption. People don't like that game because you have to ride around on a horse and you have to clean your gun and you have to do these things that some people aren't into, but I love because it's all about immersing me in that world and making me feel connected to it. And so one of the ways that you do that is by having systems in the game that have you interacting with the world in meaningful ways. And so, like, for me, it's satisfying to go get some ore and make a bunch of bullets. And now I'm set for a little while. And it's like, I'm going to be running out of bullets soon. So I'm always in my mind thinking, maybe I should keep a surplus of ore. While I'm going, I might, grab this node here so that I can just kind of keep my ore going and stuff like that. That's all gameplay aspects that nowadays, when I see node, I'm like, ooh, I can make some money, maybe a little bit of gold with that. And that's kind of all there is to it, and same with like when I'm playing a hunter in retail, it's just like, okay, I'm just going to go, I'm going to just hit these buttons and they're going to go on cooldown and this thing's going to die and then I'm going to move on and that's fine. And so you see how there are different mentalities and how each version of the game sort of caters to the different mentalities. And so that's why what frustrates me about WoW players, especially when we're talking about these two iterations of the game, is that people almost act as if, the games are, like one is just automatically superior to the other. It's like, well, no, one caters to a different mindset and a different level of enjoyment, than the other one. And that's why it's kind of good that both exist, because ultimately it's like, you either have one game that is, like, what am I trying to say? It's like you can't have the game be both. You can't have the game be ultra streamlined and then also have the game be, more immersive and less streamlined and more involved. It doesn't really work like that. So it's like, I think that ultimately the best thing they ever did was, hey, we have two iterations of the game. But what frustrates me is that it's almost like sometimes like all this time that I've heard people say, "Oh, you just remember the old game. You think it was better. It's just rose tinted glasses." And then here I am playing it, and it's so different from the modern game. And sure enough, the things that I missed when I come back, I still like, and I'm glad to be able to play them again. And I think that that's where it starts with people to understand. It's like you may not value the old game. You may not want to come back and do it, but you should at least be able to understand why someone else might. And I think that's a very important thing for people to do. And if you're not capable of doing that, well, then you're very small-minded, and short-sighted, and that's coming from a blind guy, right, telling you you're short-sighted. The games are very different from each other. That's the thing that's important. It's important to understand that WoW Retail and WoW Classic are very different, and all you have to do is just look at the Hunter class, and it's very obvious in what ways the two games are different. So it's important to look at different perspectives because it can help you understand why there's a need for both and why people are just different and have different values, and who cares what the percentage is of how many people prefer one over the other. You can rail all day long and say how, well, things are different now and people are different, and it's like, well, no, there are some people that are not different, that still like things a different way. That's not a time sensitive thing. That's just how people are. It's like, yeah, maybe people are a little bit more instant gratification these days, especially younger people. There might be people that would prefer a more streamlined, I suppose, less tedious process. But then you might have people that do that, and then they say, well, I don't feel that invested. I wish there was more. And then when you give them classic, they say, oh, okay, this is more. And so that's kind of the idea there. So, I think that that's one of the things that makes the Hunter stand out the most to me, is because of how unique the classic version is. And I have yet to find a class design quite like the classic Hunter in any MMO ever since the classic Hunter has been around. So that's why it still remains as one of my favorites. It's everything about taming your pet, taking care of it, having ammo, all of that stuff. It just plays a big role in why I love the class. So here we are now. We're going to try to tame a boar, but it's not that one. I have to tame a specific kind, and it looks like they're all dead. So this is going to be fun. There we go. We got one. Has to be specifically a large crag boar. I found elder crag boars. I found crag boars. Had to be a large one. So this is sort of the the classic WoW had the specific class quests, and I'm sure there's going to be other ones that we do, because there's, again, we're looking at memories. But this is definitely the one that stood out the most to me, doing the hunter taming class quest. And so now we have this pet. We're not quite at the point yet, though, where we have all the features unlocked, because this is sort of like a quest chain. Right now it's just sort of teaching us. It's actually kind of cool because, right now technically they give you this like taming rod, this tool that you use to tame the pets. And I actually think that's kind of cool. Because it's like you don't have the spell yet, so you have to use this tool to do it, and so it kind of makes sense in the context of the quest line. So it's just kind of neat that your hunter starts off not knowing how to tame a pet. You just kind of know how to use ranged weapons a little bit, and that's it. So that's one of the things that's really cool about it. So we're going to turn this in here, and then we should be getting another one, and it's going to be, use the taming rod. A snow leopard. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to go down here and click and dismiss. I think, there we go. So we dismiss that guy, and then we go tame a snow leopard. And again, having Questy is nice because it kind of tells me where to go. That's one thing. One thing about Classic I don't miss is I don't mind having the objectives on the screen. I think that's fine. I think that the way to do that is if you don't want that help, just have it be toggleable. You know what I mean? It's like playing Assassin's Creed. You can either, use the help, or you can choose not to. And I think that's fine. I think that's giving people those options is the way to go. I would always use it because I'm visually impaired, and having waypoints and trackers for me is very helpful, because I'm, even if I'm trying to, immerse myself and try to find it myself, it's very difficult for me to do. So Of course, we're back to trying to find the specific animal. So give me a minute because oh wait, there's one snow leopard. There we go. Am I close enough to it? No, I'm not. So let's get a little bit closer, and then we use the item. There we go. So now we are taming a snow leopard. And you know how many times leveling in this specific place, because pretty much everybody on Alliance makes a dwarf hunter. It's like most hunters are dwarves. There are some night elf hunters too, but there have been numerous times where I've gotten yelled at by people for accidentally taking the pet they were trying to tame. So I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm visually impaired. I didn't even see you there. I killed the thing they're trying to tame. I've done that. I've also accidentally killed a rare that a hunter was trying to tame. I've also been the hunter that was trying to tame the rare. That yeah. So you see, it's one of those things that happens. So now that we do have a pet, though, as you can see, what's cool is obviously now it's kind of the same. You know, we're using it to fight. It definitely in Classic, you get it pretty early on, but it's one of those things that, man, you notice the difference right away. It's like, oh man, having a pet as a hunter, you appreciate it so much more because those first 10 levels without it, you're like, okay, this is tough. And then you get the pet and you're like, ah, you know, and so like there's just so much of a connection that, you know, at least I feel to my pet in Classic that I don't feel in retail. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the reasons why I appreciate it so much. But let's go ahead and turn this in here. And I think there might be one more. You get all this XP, though, which is nice. Use the taming rod to tame an ice claw bear. All right, so now we got to tame one of those bears. And honestly, bears, one of my favorite pets to use. In Classic, pre-Wrath, when pets were a lot more unique. So, like, now, like, you know, in Wrath, pets have their own talent trees. So each family is very similar now in terms of like they can all kind of use the same abilities. In Classic, you know, there were certain abilities that were natural for some pets, like Boar's New Charge, you know, and so different pets had different abilities, and so some pets were better than others. That was kind of the downside to that. Of course, it was also kind of nice to have a bunch of unique pets, right? But on the flip side, in Wrath, what you have is a talent tree, and so you can kind of customize your pet. It's a part of its own family, so like a bear has to be a tank, which is fine. So it's still kind of unique in its own way, but a bear and a boar can kind of learn the same abilities now. Whereas in Classic, it was a lot more of a weird puzzle to try to get your pets to learn different abilities. You had to tame certain pets to learn the ability from, and then you could teach that ability to other pets or something like that. It was really weird, and it was kind of a neat idea, but it was a little bit like to me it was a little too complicated. So that's one of those areas where like I think there's room for a little streamlining. I don't think that all streamlining is necessarily bad, but again, that kind of goes into the perspective and the fact that people have different perspectives on these issues or these changes and what some people prefer over others. You know, and that's a little complicated, but you know, you kind of get the idea. All right, so here's the bear right here. I can tell it's this one because the color of it. So it's not my favorite bear fur color, but we'll take it. I think I will probably eventually go get a different colored bear. I always liked taming an Elwyn Forest bear. I don't know if it's true, but like there was a time where like something like the Ursius from Winter Spring was like the best bear pet, and then like the Elwyn Forest bear was the second best. That's what I remember. I specifically remember reading that on like Tank Spot or something. I don't know if that was true or not, but that's how I always did it. So I always tamed an Elwyn Forest bear, and that's what I stuck with. I don't even know if that's true or not, though. But yeah, either way, a bear's a bear, you know. But I like the brown bears the best. They're really cute. So I'll get one, name it Banjo, call it a day. And yeah, it'll be fun. So yeah, I mean, like, so there you go. Like, we're taming the pet. Now we're going to learn tame pet. And from this point on, I can kind of, you know, pick whichever pet I want to tame. So I can tame anything that's a beast. I can tame a cat, I can tame a bear, I can tame a boar, and then I have to focus on keeping it happy, which again, this doesn't really highlight, but this is kind of the quest. I'm actually surprised that I was easily able to find them because of all the people that have been out here killing the wildlife, but yeah, there you go. So let's go ahead and turn this thing in, see if we get everything. So taming rod, taming lesson. So this is like, I think we learn everything. So it says speak with Bella in Ironforge. So this is where I learned how to train. But I think I know taming now. Let's see if that's the case. yeah, so I can call pet and I can tame beast. So I can tame, dismiss, call pet. But I think to learn how to feed a pet, I have to go to town. So, yeah, so that's one of those things that you got to think about. So what I would do is dismiss, and then I'm going to make my run to Iron Forge, and we'll go from there. So, yeah, let's do that. All right, so here's this lady here, and she's going to teach us everything that we need to know. So now we have the ability to feed our pet, and eventually we will learn min pet as well. So now we can put feed pet on our hotbar here. And now we just got to go tame ourselves a pet. So I'm going to go ahead and do just what I said. I'm going to make my way to Elwyn Forest, which means more running. So we've made it all the way to Elwyn Forest. Had to go to Iron Forge to the Deep Run tram. And it took us about 10 minutes to get here, roughly. So now we are looking for what we just found, a young forest bear. And this is what I came here to tame. This is always what I like to tame. For whatever reason, like I said, this is just the pet that I always go for. So I made my way all the way to Elwyn Forest just to get this here bear. And yeah, no regrets. I'm not going to lie. No regrets whatsoever. As long as this thing doesn't kill me, we should be good. Oh, there we go. So we got it. Now we're going to use it to kill this guy. This TheKephas wannabe. We're going to take him out. So now we've got ourselves a pet. As you can see, if you look down at his health bar, he's not happy. He doesn't like being he does not like being tamed. Hopefully he doesn't turn on me. He's already got low health. Alright, so we need to feed him stat. So we have some food here to give him. Try and make him happy. Look at that. We throw it at him. And now, it's not really something you can spam. Actually, in Wrath, they gave it an animation, which I think is really cool. So every now and then you can kind of feed him, and he throws the food at the pet. And so now you can see that he is a little happier. So we can go into our panel here. You can see he likes meat, fish, cheese, bread, fungus, and fruit. So bears eat just about everything, you know. And so now he's happy, and over time he will become more and more of my friend. And then I just have to make sure that he stays happy, and yeah, and we'll be on good terms, and he'll level up, and he'll be my buddy, and it's exciting. So there you guys go. We have ourselves a bear. We can go back to questing, and now I have a pet with me to keep things fun and a lot easier. A whole lot easier. But the trade-off, of course, is that I now have responsibility. I now have to take care of him. I have to make him happy. Look at that. Him leveled up already. Him has already grown into the biggest of boys. So, you know what? The last thing we're going to do here is we're going to name him. And we're going to name him Banjo. There we go. Name is Banjo the Bear. So he's going to be my buddy throughout this adventure, and we don't have the, oh wait, do we? We do have it. So I don't think I have any points yet, but, yeah, oh, I do have a point. So here we go. So these are the talent trees, as you can see here, for the, I'm using the talented add-on, by the way, to kind of make it look the way it does. But, yeah, so I can go through here, and as my pet levels up, along with myself, I have my own talent tree, and he has his. And I actually think this was a really great addition. I kind of wish this was still in the game, because, again, it just all kind of goes into what makes the hunter, you know, feel unique, make your pet feel unique, make me feel more connected to it. And this is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, memories and adventures and moments in Classic WoW is just the hunter getting your first pet, sticking with that pet or whatever pet you like, and then just, you know, sort of taking care of it and everything that kind of goes into it. I love this aspect of the old game. It's something that I really do miss. And while I understand why some people might not like it and maybe why it doesn't fit in the modern iteration of the game and how it's designed, it's certainly something that I feel is very missed, something that is lost, you know, and something that I like going back to play Classic to see. So anytime someone tells me that I wouldn't actually like Classic, this is what I can point to and say, nope, that's not true. This is what I like. I like stuff like this. This is a big part of why I play Classic, why I love the old journey, because it feels like a journey. So anyways, I thought this would be fun to do. I know it was a lot. It was long and it was a lot of talking, but I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are in the comments below. Let me know what some of your memories are, maybe just through your adventure, and maybe they're mine and I can recreate those memories as well. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to join in the discussion in the comments below, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is TheKephas. Until next time.